Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Helmick, and I'm the president of the American Library Association. I am heartbroken to not be joining you in person, to shake your hands, and to connect and learn with you, but I really do appreciate the opportunity to share what's on my heart about a profession that I have beloved for almost 2 decades, and to hear back from you, hopefully via email or on social, so that we can keep the connection going and continue to learn together as colleagues in the years to come. With that in mind, I'm going to share my slides and present to you all Stronger Together, Libraries as Connective Tissue for Uncertain Times. So, a little bit about myself is that I ran on the platform Our Stories Are Worth Sharing because I believe that with storytelling comes understanding, and with understanding comes support. So, I thought I'd share a little bit about myself as we go through our journey today. I am the current American Library Association president until the end of June. In 2023, I was the president of my home state, Iowa, which is in the middle of our nation, during a time where the state had the second most library adverse bills in the nation. Before then, I represented my state as an American Library Association counselor that votes on policy that influences and shapes and guides the profession and has for 150 years. And before then, I sat on the Intellectual Freedom Chair for my state, as well as the Iowa Governor's Commission on Libraries. It has been absolutely joyful to sit on a few ALA Book Award committees, including the Sophie Brody Awards, the Michael L. Prince, and the Stonewall. My introduction into the American Library Association, though, started with the Libraries Transform campaign, where essentially we were trying to remind the American public about the inherent values of libraries, not only for civil societies, but as opportunity incubators. We were trying to remind them of things like you do not have to pay $6 for a caramel macchiato in order to stay in a space and use the Wi Fi. America's libraries are third places, and we welcome you there. Additionally, I was honored to commit and contribute to a guide called Open to All, serving the LGBTQIA community in our libraries. And more recently, worked with Library Futures on an interactive game called Imagine If, that is sort of choose your own adventure, and helps frontline staff navigate the complexities of not only First Amendment challenges, but filming and freedom audits in public libraries. But the reason that I think I get the opportunity to speak with all of you today, maybe more fundamentally, is because we find ourselves as information professionals and data scientists in a really odd spot. The VDEM report came out a couple of weeks ago and reported that autocracies now outnumber democracies for the first time in 20 years. Our global history is now shifting back towards autocracies, and that's really scary for folks who are the intellectual and civic cornerstones of their society. And so I really am honored to, I guess, first apologize for the cultural influences that America have that are negative in terms of book banning and censorship, and recognizing that we all influence each other globally, and that each of us will probably play an important role not only in our home communities but in our profession to return to better tides. But before we get into that, I want to give you an opportunity to know where to reach me, and to introduce you to my kitty, Rilke. Rilke, also known as the Chief Operating Director of the Home Office, loves pet photos and success stories, as well as reaching out with questions. And the best email to reach her or me is at samhelmick.library@gmail.com. And if I can have a moment to brag about home staff here, she does have an array, a special portfolio of skills. As you can see in the upper right, she is about to nap. But if you look to the left, she is already dozing. But she can also really expand her skill set to do some sleeping, as you can see in the center there. And then when she's not stealing my pen, she likes to rest on the Chicago manual style textbook that I have. So Rilke and I would love to connect with you after this presentation. I probably do presentations 90% to connect with wonderful folks like you and 10% for the pet photos. And so I'm going to tell you a little story about my introduction to libraries in general. In the United States, we have something called the summer reading program, and in part we do it to avoid what we call the summer slide. So essentially, we know our students have gained a lot of literacy skills over the academic year, and we do not want them to slide back from lack of use. We want them to stretch them out and practice them much like a muscle. And other countries have this too. I was recently in Norway and I saw that they had a really cool one that goes across the nation. And I really loved the hamster art. But in 2000 and wow, 8, I was volunteering at a library, and the summer reading theme at that time was called "To Catch the Reading Bug." And the way I entered into that library was kind of fascinating. In my hometown, there had been one library my entire life, and when I was growing up in a religious conservative household, some of my earliest memories were taking family paperbacks into the backyard and holding them up to Earth's sun because sections had been redacted in black Sharpie. And I thought if I held it up to the light, I might be able to see what it said. And so a classic example of this would have been we had Peter Benchley's Jaws in the family library. And it was okay for me to know that the man-eating shark was terrorizing the small beach town, but it wasn't all right for me to know that the marine biologist was having an illicit affair with the sheriff's wife. Ooh la la. And so I am actually a product of being taught what to think versus how to think, that ideas can be dangerous and should be best left alone. Additionally, they didn't have a teen space when I was a kid at the Burlington, Iowa Public Library. We had some maybe R.L. Stein's Fear Streets and some Tiger Beat magazines, but if I tried to slip upstairs to see what the adult section had, I kind of got side-eyed and didn't feel very welcome. So I grew up to be an adult that didn't think that the library had any purpose in my life, and therefore I didn't find myself compelled to publicly support it. Um, and due to that fact, when I was a freshman in college, despite the fact that the floors of the Burlington Public Library were bowing under the weight of the books, I horrified my English instructor by writing a paper about why I didn't think we needed to pass a special tax levy to build a new library. Now, she reluctantly passed me along. I think I actually clept out of that class. But despite my A plus paper, they did end up building that library in my community. And a couple of years go along, and I'm in a small Christian conservative college, and I have to volunteer somewhere in the community in order to meet requirements for graduation. And would you believe it? They had this beautiful new library, and I could volunteer there all summer long during the summer reading program. And they had meeting rooms where senior citizens would order pizza and play cards, and they had not only a teen collection, but a teen space dedicated for them and a teen advisory board where teens could have their breath and fingerprints in the planning of not only the programs but the collection. And when I was home in my jammies, I could also download ebooks and audiobooks right off of my device because the library now had this wonderful digital collection. And I just sort of fell in love with the idea of what libraries could be, and I've never really looked back. But I can actually tell you the moment that I fell in love with libraries. You see, in rural America, for a lot of poor and economically depressed families, the summer reading program is the family's vacation during the school break. And so I remember the Iowa State University's extension office bringing a whole bunch of etymology students with what we called an insect zoo to the library. And this was so popular, it had hundreds of people in it, that we had to do the program twice, otherwise we would have broken fire code. And I remember standing in the lobby, and a little person of a completely different gender, race, age, came up to me and said, Sam, if you'd hold the tarantula, which was in the petting zoo array of displays, I would pet him. And I remember thinking, I have this 6-year-old on two technicalities. The first being that spiders are not insects friends. They're arachnids. So I feel like these etymology students need a couple of entomology students to support them. But regardless of their ontological or categorized description, I don't do them. Spiders creep me out terribly, terribly, terribly bad. In fact, even looking at this slide is kind of giving me the heebies and or jeebies. But I realized something in that moment that had never been captured in my isolated, conservative upbringing. There is nowhere else, at least in my country, where two strangers, two neighbors of completely different backgrounds can organically meet and have a transformative experience together. So I scooped up the tarantula and this little person pet them. And as the years went on, I fell in love with libraries and became a librarian. And they became a teenager in my teen advisory board when I became a teen librarian. And both of their parents are educators. So when I drove them off to university and helped them move into their dorm because mom and dad were working that day, I had not only the luxury of that proud papa moment of taking someone to college without raising them for 18 years, but I realized that those transformative experiences can be lifelong. So one or two things happened. I either passed out from fear of this tarantula, and the last 18 or so years have been an elaborate fever dream. Or because of the power of libraries, you can do a 180 and you can understand the importance of investing in civil societies and infrastructure that offers equitable access to information and opportunity. and or this has all just been an elaborate fever dream, and I will wake up from it someday. So as a person who homeschooled, I was almost too shy to even answer a phone, but they welcomed me into the library and I started to learn about the importance of telling the library's good news. And that led to me, growing out of my shell, going to library school, becoming a mobile social marketing and libraries author and an instructor at my local business college. And things were going pretty wonderfully. I love telling good news. It's nice and fun to tell good library news. And I thought, I want to represent something more after I did the Libraries Transform campaign. And so I became a counselor to represent my state and to learn more about the national impact of library networks and organizations. And the year that I became the chapter counselor, you by default became the intellectual freedom chair for your state. And I remember the president at the time saying, "Don't worry though, Sammy, nothing really happens much in Iowa." And as I was swearing in to become a counselor, I get a text that in Orange City, Iowa, a minister has checked out multiple LGBTQIA plus books and is burning them on Facebook Live. And I'm Midwesterner, and we solve things with carbs and baked goods. And so I remember sending some donuts to the library board of trustees and saying, "I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out together." And that was my first deep dive into intellectual freedom and understanding that the way that I had been raised actually was contagious, because censorship is a hammer looking for a nail and it is never really satisfied. I'm happy to report that I learned a lot with so many wonderful people from that experience, and we were able to support the library as it was under threats of being shut down if it maintained those titles. And not only did it maintain those titles and the library being open, but Orange City, Iowa actually has the largest Pride Parade in the state and has for several years. The Iowa Library Association won the Robert B. Downs Intellectual Freedom Award for this effort, and it was mostly because we recognized it was important to express to Iowans, taxpayers, community stakeholders that this was their library. And in order for free people to read freely, in order for library workers to give choice, we have to give you as full array of options, as full as possible, for you to choose to opt in and opt out. And that led to my presidency when 3,671 unique titles were banned, including an age-inappropriate bill that has been in the not only state court but federal court in my nation back and forth. In fact, the 5 largest publishers of the United States sued my governor the year I was ILA president. And so I can see where my background in not understanding the value of libraries because they didn't offer me a welcoming experience, to realizing just because something didn't fit in its time, maybe if we invested in ourselves and local libraries and local communities, we could build something that was more meaningful and impactful, to taking those marketing and awareness skills and turning them into advocacy, because the world around me had required those awareness skills where we enfranchise our communities by telling them what is available to them, and to advocacy work because we do not want it to go away. So I appreciate you letting me tell a little bit of my story, because it's almost embarrassing as the president of the American Library Association to say less than 20 years ago, I actively wrote about not supporting the new building in my hometown. But that is the power of libraries and the power of being willing to change your mind and have safe places to learn and to redesign your perspective. So I ran on the campaign Our Stories Are Worth Sharing because I do believe that storytelling brings understanding and connection across differences. And lo and behold, we're library workers. From story time to annual reports, we're very, very good at spinning yarn. And you and I know that this is a way that our species has connected for millennia. But I think that as importantly, libraries are trusted institutions in their service communities. So whether it's in an academic or school or public space, we are able to amplify community voices as well as preserved lived experiences because it's important to know not only where we're going, but we can't create that trajectory without knowing where we've been. Additionally, because of our platform, we can amplify voices that need a little more room if they've been marginalized or they haven't actually been given a space at the table in society historically. In a time of censorship as well and division, stories remind us that we belong to one another. So, my classic example of that is the age inappropriate bill is trying to eradicate books like Genderqueer from school libraries in my state. And when I was talking to my parents about this over a holiday dinner a couple of years ago, they said, I just don't understand how you can fight for this, Sammy. And I just gently said, well, because you gave me sex education, right? Or a development education when I was 5. And they're like, oh, we did not. And I said, well, let me remind you, for 2 holiday seasons in a row, I was the innkeeper's wife for the Christmas pageant. And that Immaculate Conception, in some way, shape, or form, is reproductive education because the absence of something suggests the presence of something else. And I didn't tell them this story to drop a mic. I told them this story to remind them that we can relate to one another. And as a public librarian, it would really be inappropriate for me to take that choice from caregivers or parents when they were given the full autonomy to make those decisions for their family. And I'm happy to say they came around, and my dad actually took his first flight ever on an airplane to come see me be inaugurated. But we also know from studies that library programs focused on cultural exchange and storytelling have shown an increase in attendance by over 40% in urban settings. This is important to me because libraries are listeners first, and we ask what the community needs, and then we try to match services and resources to that. And so by leaning in and listening and giving our community members an opportunity to exchange their cultural values and heritage and stories, we see that return on investment with their engagement. So why are we here? Because we're in the crucible, right? Defunding. We're having a class war that has also, been distracted by a cultural war, at least in the United States, because every single legislative cycle shows not only are the books on the shelves question and our ability to trust our neighbor to navigate them and their family's own intellectual life, but then we don't see funding or support. In fact, we see a lot of stripping of funding and resourcing and support for libraries that follows that. So we are fighting a class war that is distracting us from the culture one. And why are libraries in the crucible? Because they're relevant, because we have always been a cornerstone of democracies, because we have always been part of a developing and civil society. In my own nation, which is about to be 250 years old, we can see where some of the founders heavily invested in libraries: Franklin, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, in part because to try to be a more perfect union, never perfect, obviously, but more perfect union of, by, and for the people, we would need to have an educated constituency that could lead itself. And we recognize that what is happening in the U.S. is not isolated. Unfortunately, Americans are contributing to it. I was just with our friends in Canada, and they were telling me that Americans are crossing the border and challenging books there. But we are global citizens, and what affects one of us affects all of us. Whether it's defunding libraries or stripping patrons of their intellectual freedoms. And so we're in this together and stronger together because while the rationale and the motivation behind why things are being banned in the United States could be different than, challenged in Canada or Australia or anywhere else in the world, I think that the strategies of leaning in, listening to our communities, and figuring out paths forward is one of our superpowers as library workers, and that we can meet the moment together. This is a shared democratic moment. So, first, when we solve something, whether it's a disease or a thesis statement, like a thesis, we have to come up with a statement, we have to come up with a problem, and then seek the solution. And so, in the United States, we're defining our challenges by not only a rise in book bans and challenges, but actually coordinated efforts and local pressures. And what I mean by that is we have found that in the last year, over 92% of all challenges came from special interest groups, not local residents. And often these challenges were a long list of copy and pasted titles, some of which may not even exist in the card catalog of the library in question. So this is an effort, a coordinated effort to create pressure. We see consistently year after year after year that these challenges and bans are targeting stories about identity, but also history, critical race theory, and lived experiences of our LGBTQIA neighbors. We are also now seeing an increase of religious identities being banned when they are not the most common in the community in discussion. And then library workers are under scrutiny in a way that we've never really faced before. Even during the McCarthy era, we were always seen as trusted, knowledgeable experts and supporters in our community. And there has been an effort to dismantle that trust. And last year, we saw 72% were special interest groups, so this is continuing to increase. The state of libraries just came out. They're publishing that paper this week, and we've had the second most in the unique titles banned in the history of the American Library Association testing it. So it was 4,300 and I think 25, which was 5 fewer than our highest in 2023. We're seeing a lot of censorship being framed as protection rather than control. Essentially, we're trying to decide whether we're teaching the American public how to think or what to think. There are economic pressures on these institutions because if we do live in an information age, what you and I provide has a lot of capital. And what I mean by that is if information becomes a pay-to-play sector of public life, libraries really are the last firewall between privatizing the internet, databases, literature, learning opportunities, and those who would like to make that not only a pay-to-play model, but I think a leasing model on content almost exclusively. We know that outrage sells and that outrage distracts us from actually organizing and doing the work of civil societies. So when library workers are there to teach you how to analyze information and to assess it and to filter it out and to ruminate upon it to make your own determinations, you and I become a break in the structure of disinformation as it serves folks who are trying to sell you instant dopamine, folks who are trying to sell you distraction, folks who are trying to sell you outrage. We have seen a sweeping attack on professional expertise and knowledge. We see that that is a common historical thread throughout history and autocracies. But that's really dangerous because at some point our patrons and our students have a right to find a trusted resource on research, telehealth, finding a job. And it's beyond the books or the drag queen story time. It is about who gets to decide what is true. So how is the United States meeting that moment? In community with the people we serve. Because at the end of the day, library professionals in this moment of history are the only firewall between pernicious policies and the people that we are serving. And so we do this by building coalitions. We do this by working with folks who are veterans and who've fought for the First Amendment rights that the United States practices every day in public libraries, particularly in the First Amendment space, the right to think what you believe and believe what you want, the right to speech, the right to assembly, the right to grievance your government, which is a First Amendment right in the United States, the right to a predetermined or guaranteed outcome, that doesn't exist. But we do have policies, processes, and procedures to determine how to handle a grievance like a book challenge to your government entity. We're also working with interfaith alliances. Often in the United States, faith groups have been weaponized against libraries, and some very vocal minorities have tried to speak on behalf of faith in attacks on libraries and intellectual freedom, and other faith groups are now coordinating, and the National Interfaith Alliance is working with the American Library Association to launch faith in libraries, because we often play in the same space in terms of it's dedicated space for our communities. We have folks who operate in there that are under trust and privacy and autonomy, and we're there to help you navigate your intellectual, spiritual, and social life. We're also working on building communities of practice, teaching folks about First Amendment law, teaching people to understand their respective codes and policies in their institutions and states, and working together on everything from writing letters to your editor in the local newspaper to how do you handle media questions and pivot when you wanted them to ask you the right question. Because even our allies in the media space want this to become a binary, and things of this meticulous and important nature, like libraries, rarely are. So a classic example of this would be I am the first non-binary president, not only of the American Library Association, but the Iowa Library Association. And during Banned Books Week, Private Sam would love to tell you that, boy, I wish that Genderqueer, a book about me, non-binary, Arrow, Ace, had been around when I was a teenager, and how grateful I am that that book is there now. But I get to choose strategically whether I'm arguing over a title or I'm really working to defend the intellectual freedom and the processes that make that available to the people I serve. So I'll often tell folks when they ask me my favorite banned book that that's an excellent question. I'm not sure it's even been written yet, but I'm here to defend a process by which it can, and it can be read, and that you can debate the merits. And by supporting your libraries and affording the opportunity to put them in our databases and on our shelves, we can always rest assured that we'll have that right. Focusing on the fundamentals. Nobody else does what we do, friends. Nobody else is in the work of shifting between content and data and information and really thought partnering along with their students and their communities and their patrons to navigate the world of knowledge. And so I think by continuing to be very good at what we're doing, collection development, programming, service, customer frontline service, we are meeting that moment by continuing to, in our actions, be the most trusted face of our communities in many ways. But then we're also done with describing the waters. Right now is a time for building rafts. And what I mean by that is the American Library Association developed the largest coalition of those against the abridgment or censorship of information of any kind in the Western Hemisphere. Anyone can join. Your counselor, your dentist, your institution as a library. And it's really just a playbook and a space where we all come together and we raise our voice for everybody's freedom to read. And we encourage people to run for office, and we build coalitions of practice so we can support each other and present and teach and support anything from anti-doxing to recognizing how you teach your communities about fake news. And then professionally, I'm recognizing what's going well as opposed to living in a space of fear, because I operate better under gratitude. I also love the fact that there are people all over the globe now who will talk to me about how they're pushing back against censorship, and I get to encourage them. In fact, I'll have friends who will say, I'm rocking up on the State House of XYZ state. I'm about to testify in front of the legislature, and I'm like, are you hydrating? Can I Uber eat you a sandwich? Because we have to take care of each other. Taking care of yourself is taking care of the mission. And then it's engaging, organizing, activating your communities, because this information is important, but it will be more meaningful to folks when they hear it from their neighbors, their family, their friends. So activating folks to talk about the good things libraries are accomplishing, so that when false, negative, defamatory things come out about the work we do, it creates the appropriate cognitive dissonance and asks people to really balance what they're hearing versus what they're seeing. And then it's remembering your why. I I really was hoping to see you all in person because I genuinely love folks' tarantula stories. I love understanding why people came into this field and how they embrace other people. And they've pretty much decided that whether they're having a great day or a mediocre day, the work that they're going to do is going to allow them to keep their head high because, beloved, no matter what you're doing, you're contributing to public good. And not every profession gets to say that. And so it's really wonderful to remember our why. The American Library Association not only has Unite Against Book Bans, but now for legislation in terms of defending the Institute for Museum and Library Services and successfully defeating the executive order that sought to dismantle it from the Trump administration, to seeking funding now for that institute and supporting folks and pushing back against a federal book ban bill that has just been making the rounds lately. Show Up for Our Libraries is a one-click space where folks can just immediately activate and contact their representatives. And then for the first time in our history, which will be 150 years here in June, the hardest part of my president might be learning to say sesquicentennial in public. We have a public supporter campaign called For Our Libraries for Us All, and this is a way for folks to support the freedom to read because it is a fight right now, and this fight is not free. So how else are we meeting the moment? We're meeting it joyfully. We're meeting it by inviting the acting Librarian of Congress, who seems to be the only head of any federal branch that has stood up to this administration, to come and talk to us about recharging in challenging times. And that was a wonderful virtual keynote that people could enjoy from the comfort of their office or their couch. And just remember that all of us, regardless of what space we hold in this field, are taking on challenging times, but we cannot pour from an empty cup. And so it was just important to hear from some of us facing maybe some of the most notoriable scrutiny, what we're doing. But then it's also like building your coalitions outside your own borders, going to the town next door, going to the academic library when you've only exclusively been in public, and just thinking about how do we support each other. In fact, I knew nothing about school libraries because I homeschooled when I was the president of the American Library Association. And so in order to help try to defeat this bill or get the 5 largest publishers to help us, I just asked the School Library Association president, like, can you just invite like 15, 16 school librarians? We'll order food. I'll sit at their feet. I'll take notes. And they taught me so much because like I couldn't open a locker combination to save my soul. I had no idea how a school library worked. And by being able to ask those questions, it helped me cut through the emotional onslaught that they were facing to get down to the nitty-gritty of writing a letter of inquiry to the Department of Ed and having it published in our Capitals newspaper, which was how it got the attention of publishing houses. And then it's just joyfully showing up for libraries at the national capital too, here in the center where you see all these lovely library workers on the U.S. Capitol steps. We all organized, over 200 of us, to go talk to our local representatives and really, remind them of the importance and that the American Library Association has over 50 years of data that can correlate a strong teacher librarian presence in a school and graduation and student success. We also can tell our representatives that for every dollar they put into a public library, they're getting about a 5 to 9 return on investment. And so really talking to those directly in power and making those community connections outside of your home area. And then just thinking about where you can be in the entertainment space. It was absolutely awesome to meet Hannah Nicole Jones at South by Southwest and talk with her and folks at PFLAG about preserving LGBTQIA stories and recognizing that their voices are going to hit new audiences and their perspectives are going to enhance my talking points and my understanding of what to do as a librarian. And so this is the work that we should be doing. We should be reaching out to entertainers, publishers, lawyers, faith communities, folks who are doing this hard work at virtually every single level of leadership so that we can be talking and teaching each other and then pouring outward. The United Nations has been doing some wonderful programs that the American Library Association has been invited to. And it's really fascinating to be able to talk to them about how all of the sustainability goals in one way or another can intersect with their community's library, and that we do not have to reinvent wheels to meet our objectives. And so, what do I think we can contribute to in terms of global partnerships and local partnerships, professional networking, and activating our community? Well, this is the place in the presentation where I think I'm saying something profound and I pretend that people should grasp their pearls, but I'm not sure I'm telling you anything you don't know. This is my theory, though, friends. If you want to gasp and make me feel good about it, that's cool. But if you don't, I totally get it. I don't think we live in an information age. I think we live in an age of content. I know I'm zooming, but I'm almost certain I heard somebody gasp. And what I mean by that, beloved, is that there's doom scrolling, there's misinformation, disinformation, generative information, distraction, right? And we're all vying and seeking deeply to understand a world that is constantly seeking to distract us. Even social media algorithms will bounce us from one concept to another. It will show us something that makes us worry about the global stage, and then something that makes us worry about the local stage, and then it will show us a cute animal video, and then it will try to sell us something to get that dopamine effect. Like, we are constantly being marketed and cajoled and experimented on. And that's tricky. That's really tricky to navigate. And so I think what you and I do as practitioners in the library space is we add curation and we add context to that content. You and I develop either deep curriculum supported collections or broad community supported collections to meet the intellectual pursuits and interests of the community that we're serving. But then we also add curation with classes, lectures, events, databases, conversations, thought partnerships in order for that content to become information, and hopefully information to become knowledge or wisdom. We support learners and digital navigators because we know that endless information is not understanding. And we allow opportunity, classes, events, connections that takes content and helps it become information. And then I think that we are probably the only ones positioned in modern society to think about the algorithmic justice, consumer rights, and privacy of our communities. So you and I have a lot to offer to each other and to the communities we serve, but also to the stakeholders who are developing the map and designing the future in real time as you and I live it. And so I think that our relationships can be joyful. I think our relationships can be collaborative and supportive. I think our community of practices can help us to love each other and remind each other to hydrate. And I think that if we remember that, then you and I can reconcile and work through the concept that free people do really read freely. They consume freely, they listen freely, they watch freely, they talk freely. And for civil societies to thrive, we have to have access without barriers. We cannot conflate the presence of an idea as its endorsement, and we have to give true options. And the only way I can do that is by providing as much as I can, by stewarding the community's resources and providing you an array of events, collections, resources, and letting you opt in and opt out. But we also have to be able to have the freedom to read and to think, to have programs that challenge us, to have conversations that change us, to have insect zoos that give us an opportunity to meet neighbors that we might not have organically ever ran into otherwise in our communities. We need spaces for disagreement without dehumanizing each other, which is why it's important to think about like the librarian's role in being a community builder and amplifying voices that are marginalized. And then our people need institutions that can be trusted. And so I think the importance of your work is that you're not only against something like censorship, but you actually are for plurality and curiosity and access. You know, we're not just playing defense. You and I are playing joyful offense every single day. And so why do we share our stories? We share our stories because just for the data, the storytelling method versus conventional teaching finds that the educational context is significantly increased with memory, and that not only can you recall data better if it's told in a story format, but you will engage more with the lesson being taught. But then also in terms of not only marketing, but campaigning for grassroots initiatives, more than 70% of responders are more likely to contribute if a story effectively communicates the mission or impact of the institution or organization. But also because, frankly, our stories are worth sharing. If you get nothing else from me from this conversation, I really do hope you'll understand that what you're doing matters and that it's enough. And that if you keep going, we're going to be able to turn the tide. I really do believe that, because libraries have always played a role in the development of not only society, but justice. So you are enough. You contribute to public good. You enable civil societies to format and thrive. You don't have to be perfect to be progress. Don't let perfect become the enemy of progress. Practice makes progress. And you are never alone, which is why if I can ever be useful to you, this is the way that you contact me. In fact, um, I would I would just be beside myself if you sent me a success story or you asked me like, "Hey, I'm working on this. What do you think?" And I got the opportunity to thought partner with you. And I'm honored for the time that we got together, albeit virtually. So thank you very much, and I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful conference. And I look forward to staying in community with you all. Please take care.